Hi everyone, you're very welcome. My name is Margaret Keane and I'm Education Training and Development Officer here at Mid West ARIES. Delighted to be here today. It's a little bit cloudy where I am, so I'm hoping the sun is shining for you. Today we're going to have what we hope to be an honest conversation about mindfulness. This is a topic, I suppose I always say this, but I really do with this one. This topic comes up again and again in our workshops. We're going to look at mindfulness. Just to give you a little bit of background about Mid West ARIES, we are the Advancing Recovery Education Service of Ireland in the Midwest. So we cover Limerick, Clare and North Tipperary. And as I said, we're delighted to be here. I'm joined by a great panel today. Some are from our team who you'll probably know if you come to our webinars before, but we've got two guest panelists and I'm really excited about that. So I'm just going to stop sharing the slides there and I'll just invite the panelists, just if you can, just turn on your videos so I can see you all. Great stuff. So I suppose what can we expect today? Well, we're here for an hour. As we were just saying before we came on, that hour goes so quickly. But yeah, we're going to have an hour. And what I'd like you to do, and I'd like to encourage everybody who's here to start the conversation going immediately as we talk. This is an open Q&A session. So we have some questions here that we'd like to hit, but really what makes it for us is seeing those questions coming in from yourselves, from the audience. It drives the conversation and it really can lead us into really interesting avenues. So with that in mind, you'll see there's a Q&A button down at the bottom there. If you open that up, you can submit your question there. And yeah, so have a think about what you're hearing. And if you want to respond as well, you can do that there as well. So you can see on the screen, I've got 5 panelists with me, all with different backgrounds and different perspectives on mindfulness. So I'm going to invite them one at a time just to introduce themselves. And first off, I have Mike O'Neill. Mike, would you like to say hi and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Mike O'Neill and I'm the manager with Mid West ARIES, and as Margaret already said, we're the Recovery Education Service in the Midwest. Delighted to be here and delighted to have some fresh faces on the panel here as well today. So again, I'm intrigued as to what's going to come out in the wash as we go along. And yeah, I suppose even looking at the term mindfulness itself, yeah, it'll be interesting to hear different perspectives because it's one of those topics that I'm challenged on. So yeah, thanks, Margaret. Yeah.
And thanks right away, Mike, for the honesty around that, because I'm sure there are people here who think exactly the same thing and probably here for that very reason, to kind of think about what mindfulness means and how they can kind of connect with it. Thanks for that. Next person I'm going to go to is Noelle. Noelle, do you want to say hello?
Thanks, Margaret. Hi, everyone. I'm Noelle and I'm a Recovery Education Facilitator with Mid West ARIES. And mindfulness plays a big part in my life. It's something I find has worked really well for me and something I strive to access every day. So looking forward to the discussion today. Thanks, Margaret.
Great stuff, Noelle. Great to have you on again. It's lovely when you're part of the conversation. I always look forward to it. And I'll pass you on now to Sylvia. Sylvia, do you want to say hello?
Thanks very much, Margaret. Hi, everyone. So I'm Sylvia and I'm the newest Recovery Education Facilitator in ARIES. And my own relationship with mindfulness from both personal and professional will begin in 2014. So I would have, I suppose, a mixed approach and perspective to mindfulness. But like Noelle, it is very important in my life as well. So I'm delighted to be here and hopefully share some insights and learn some more insights about mindfulness.
And Sylvia, maybe the newest, but I tell you, we're so delighted that you're here. And it's great. I haven't spoken to you before about mindfulness. It's great having you here and just hearing your perspective. So thanks for coming along today. I'll now pass you on to Miffy. And actually, Miffy, before I pass on, I just want to say a big thank you to Mental Health Ireland, because we do run these webinars in partnership with Mental Health Ireland, and we wouldn't be here without their support. So I just want to say that. So with that in mind, Miffy, I'll just pass on to yourself.
Thanks, Margaret. Yeah, so look, we're delighted to support these initiatives, because I think one of the silver linings of COVID has meant that we have migrated online, and this has helped us reach so many more people. So that's brilliant. I am one of the development officers in Mental Health Ireland. I'm in Sligo and Leitrim now. I was in Cavan and Monaghan, moving around the country. But I also have, so that's my full-time job, and I also have a part-time coaching practice in personal growth and well-being. And for many years, more than I care to remember, probably somewhere reaching 23 or 24 years now, I've been working in the field of stress management consultation, personal development, mindfulness, and so on. And so I've been teaching mindfulness for probably about 20 years now. So it's as well as teaching it, the practical application in my own life is really important. It's a mainstay for my health and well-being. So I'm delighted to be here and delighted to be able to take part in the conversation.
Thanks, Miffy. And actually, when we're putting this together, you were on the top of our list as panelists, because with that experience, it's just great to have you here. So really excited about talking to you as we go on in the next hour. And finally, and by no means least, we have Niamh Lowe here. And again, another excited to have you, Niamh, here as a panelist. I'm just going to pass on to you there if you just want to give us a little bit of background to yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm delighted to be here as well. I was talking to Margaret last week, and I'm a psychologist working in Limerick at the moment. I'm only working 2 weeks. This is my 3rd week now in Limerick, so I moved down from Dublin. So it's really nice to be involved with ARIES and get to kind of talk about this subject and learn from people about this subject as well. So my experience of mindfulness, I would definitely use it professionally and use it with people and talk about it in groups that we run. But also I suppose I have my own personal experience of it. And not always the biggest fan maybe of mindfulness personally. Remember getting into a heated debate with a mindfulness facilitator or practitioner in one group that I was in. But I think my kind of relationship with it has changed as I've practiced and got to know more about it. So yeah, coming at it personally and professionally, I suppose, to the conversation today, and looking forward to hearing other people's views on it as well. So yeah, thank you.
And that's why, Niamh, and I just want to thank you, because only in the job so soon, and we put the call out there, and look, that just, I don't know if it shows bravery or but just to come in with us is just great. No, delighted. No, we're absolutely delighted. And again, just in terms of how you responded there, that's so important. It's giving the different facets of our experience with mindfulness. And it is that honest conversation that I think is what makes these webinars as good as they are. And so thank you for that. And with that in mind, I suppose we better kick off. And again, just a wee prompt there for the audience. Even from what you've heard there now, start the conversation going. If there's questions you want answered or things that you've been thinking about, just put it in the Q&A section there, and we'll get back to you. And also, and I said actually this to Miffy earlier on, to all of us, if there's things that come to mind that you feel that we're not covering or would like to share with the audience, just put it into the chat. If there's a bit of signposting there, a link to a book, a podcast, whatever, please feel free to put it into the chat, and we'll just try and make this as interactive as possible as we can. So with that in mind, let's get started. And we always start with, I suppose, getting a definition from the group of the topic, just trying to kind of do a little bit of a deep dive. So let's start with getting a working definition of mindfulness from you all. So what does the term mindfulness mean to you? And even if it's just something that's popping into your head right now, so I might start, because Mike, I think I always start with you because you like talking and you get us all going. But I'd like everybody to come in on this if we can. So yeah, Mike, I'll just pass it to you.
Perfect. And again, as I said, it's a word I'm challenged with. And I suppose in my mind, before there was ever mindfulness as a practice or an item or a thing, there was the word mindful. And I suppose if somebody said, you need to go over there now and defuse the bomb, so, and you need to be mindful, but that's kind of been obvious, but I suppose, but why would you be mindful? So I suppose for me, it's taking care. So that's the piece in it. It's the care element of it. You know, but when it comes to practicing mindfulness, I suppose that's where I'm challenged. I suppose my brain, it's so busy, it just goes rogue. And that's the only description I could put on it. Like, it's just that, no, it's a constant battle to remain focused. And I suppose I always, when it comes to mindfulness, I use the word, instead of mindfulness, it's mindlessness. It's so when I talk about that busyness and my brain going rogue and it's gone off on different directions, it's to be able to stop that and control that and have emptiness. You know, people would often have heard me saying, like, I just like staring out the window. But for me, that's absolute bliss, because when I'm not staring out the window, there's probably about 40 things going on at the one time. So maybe that's one of the benefits of having a brain that's all over the place, that like it's suited to this kind of work, because there's so many tasks at different times. And, you know, so anyway, so that's me, I suppose. So the care, it's back to the care piece, taking care of and taking care of ourselves. So that's kind of what is it, or what's in purpose. So again, it's just to be mindful of ourselves.
And thanks Mike. No, thanks, Mike. And just for getting that started, really appreciate that. I love that rogue mind. You know, it's just, I'm trying to tame it a little bit. And maybe that by looking out the window is just quietening the mind. So maybe it is that, you know, a different aspect of mindfulness. Miffy, if you don't mind, I'll come to you next. Yeah. So in terms of, again, just getting a definition in some way, it doesn't have to be a textbook one, just like what it means to you.
Yeah, I suppose, gosh, where to begin? Well, I suppose that as regard a definition, I suppose it's about being present to what is. And what is could be how you're feeling emotionally or physically. It could be what's in your immediate vicinity. It could be the weather. It could be your senses. So it's just paying attention to what is. So I think that there can be some myths around mindfulness that it's some esoteric, you know, sort of spiritual practice, and it can be part of your spiritual practice, and very often is a spiritual practice for a lot of us. But it is at the same time just about attending to what is. So that's in its simplest form, but don't forget, simple and easy are two different things. And I'm hearing a lot of the challenges of mindfulness for people. And Dr. Jim White said, mindfulness is like Marmite. You either love it or hate it. So I'm not quite sure, that might be a bit black and white, but yeah, it's a practice. It's a way of being. It can be formal. It can be informal. You know, we all know people who are more mindful than others. And I like Mike's description of just being mindful in that you take care. And it's about self-awareness, and it's about honesty and authenticity. It's not always easy, because sometimes we're attending to difficult emotions, for example, you know. So if we're attending to difficult emotions, they're not called difficult emotions for no reason, right? So it's not easy and it's not pretty. And in my own experience, sometimes, you know, being present to what is has included a lot of tears and snot. Sorry about the graphics, but you know, like that's the reality for us when we're going through stuff and processing and stuff. So, you know, yeah, but mindfulness in its essence is about being present to what is, which means that we're not off in the past, we're not off in the future, we're here now, as Ram Dass, be here now. So, yeah.
Thanks, Miffy. And I love that it's not pretty. And I love that thing, just be, you know, that just because something simple doesn't make it easy. You know,
and it can be blissful. But it's not always blissful, and it is about being present to what is, no matter what that is, which is where the authenticity comes in, you know, about being true to what is present. And it's sometimes, and very often in life, that's not pleasant. The present isn't pleasant always.
There's a meme in there somewhere. The present isn't always pleasant. Noelle, I could see you nodding away there furiously. So are you on the same?
Definitely, and like Miffy was saying, you know, it's not always pleasant, you know, that moment you're in. But the key to mindfulness with that is showing yourself kindness and compassion in that moment. And that's the key you learn through mindfulness, is that kindness and compassion, which are really important. But just, I suppose, mindfulness for me, I was thinking about it this morning, and it's like that. It's the awareness of my thoughts and my feelings and what's going on around me, and my body, and being fully present in what I'm doing throughout the day. Because, like you were saying, Miffy, attending to, if I don't pay attention to where I'm at, my thoughts will go off track, and then I'll start thinking about things that haven't happened yet, and then I'll go down, you know. So it's trying not to, I was thinking of words more, and what I felt is trying not to be a magnet to what's going on in my environment, to draw on myself to everything. So not being a magnet to that, and to bring myself back to here and now. And if I can do that, it stops me from getting overwhelmed, and stops me from leaving. It helps me leave the judgment at the door, because I'm just here and now. And it's something that isn't always simple, but it's something that's very accessible, because you can do it anywhere, anytime. So that's kind of my take on it.
And I love that, accessible. Again, that's simple, not easy, accessible. I love that we describe that magnet, you know, that you're not being drawn into other things when you can just be, and you're fully aware, it's full attention. Niamh, I might come to you next, again, like from a personal point of view, as a practitioner, or as a clinician. What does mindfulness mean to you?
So I guess when I was listening to all of the previous speakers talk, and nodding away furiously as well, I was struck when Mike mentioned mindlessness, kind of being mindless. That's often the way, for me, that helped me kind of, I suppose, understand it a little bit more, understand mindfulness a little bit more. And whenever I'm introducing it in a group, if I'm teaching, I will always start off by talking about mindlessness. So, you know, the more, I suppose, familiar you are with something, the more likely you are to drift off or go on autopilot, kind of. So, like, I often think, if anyone's driving, you get in the car at point A, you arrive at point B, and you don't remember the journey, because your mind has been off in the past and the future, you know, memories, worries, whatever. So you haven't been present throughout that journey. But probably if a light turned red or a car pulled out in front of you, you jolt back into the present, because, you know, the shock, or but mindlessness, I suppose, is the fact that our minds wander constantly. And that idea of, like Mike said as well, like your rogue mind, or it's roaming everywhere. And minds do that. So not being present with what we're doing, whether it's eating, driving, walking, talking, that kind of is mindlessness. And then mindfulness, I suppose, well, the textbook definition is kind of actively choosing. So you're making a choice to pay attention to whatever it is. It might be an internal, it might be your thoughts, your feelings, sensations. It might be a TV show or a conversation. So actively choosing to pay attention to something and doing it non-judgmentally. I suppose for me, that's a really big part of mindfulness as well, because I think the tendency, definitely for myself, and I think a lot of us, is to pass judgment constantly. So whether it's on ourselves, what we imagine people are thinking of us, you know, we're driving along and someone pulls out, and then we go into the judgmental, you know, such a bad driver, and I bet this and I bet that, and so yeah, like, and I think Miffy said as well, just kind of accepting what is, whatever's there, it's there. So yeah, non-judgmentally and kind of actively choosing to pay attention. And the final part, I'll say, what I think for me, when I was kind of being introduced to mindfulness, was mindfulness isn't your mind being empty and you being completely at peace. And mindfulness is catching that wandering mind and bringing it back to what you're choosing. So I remember a mindfulness teacher saying once, that moment, it might be 10 minutes into a practice, but that moment when you catch wherever your mind has wandered to and bring it back, like you're practicing mindfulness there. And I was like, ooh, that made me just be more, I suppose, non-judgmental of myself when that happened. Instead of going, oh, you're so bad at this, Niamh, there's no point, you can't do it. So yes, that's a rambly answer.
No, it's a great answer. It's kind of compiling everything. And I think, Noelle, you also mentioned that non-judgmental piece. What I heard there as well is it's kind of the conscious decision, like that, it's not just going with the flow, you're actually conscious and catching that wandering mind. Sylvia, how about yourself?
A lot to digest there, and trying to do it in a mindful way as a fly is buzzing around my head, distracting me. But I'm mindful of the present moment and what's going on. So I know I introduced myself that I would have had personal and professional experience with the mindfulness. And like Niamh was saying, and like Mike is saying, I suppose before understanding it, really, the core of it, I would have had a bias that, okay, this must be a new thing on how to control my thoughts and how to maybe read the negative away and be more in the positive. And I learned from the practice and training and going on that's an impossible aspiration, and it's to request from mindfulness, I think, and to request of yourself. I don't know like the exact figure, but I think the human mind, like we have about approximately something like 6,000 thoughts a day. So it's, there's so much in there. And then the mindfulness piece and the practice of it, when you sit with those thoughts, that's it, you're giving the attention to it, and that rises up in awareness, I suppose, of what you are really experiencing when you sit still. And for me, I suppose the difficulty, I would see myself more as doing meditation in practice a lot more than my mindfulness. For mindfulness, I tend to, like a small thing like brushing my teeth in the morning, I might set that attention to do that mindfully. Whereas for meditation, I would be more about intention than attention, and more a longer practice. And I get different benefits from them both in that kind of sense of a way. But mindfulness, I've found, I think it's very adjustable as well. Like we talk about the right and wrong way, and there's many different techniques. What great learning and insight I got from my professional capacity was doing mindfulness with children, and simple little techniques, just not going into too much theory, too much this is it, this is not it, but 10 minutes of a mindful eating exercise or a mindful walking exercise. And they are the moments where you kind of think, okay, well, is it a benefit to you? And if so, and it's working for you, we'll stick with that technique. For me, I struggled with always about, it's about coming back to your breath. If you're getting wandering thoughts, about coming back to the breath. And that's a difficult thing for me because I tend to hold my breath. So I suppose mindfulness brings up difficulties. It brings up, both good and bad insights to it. So that's my little piece on it.
Thanks, Sylvia. And you brought up something there actually that I want to kind of explore a little bit more. We may as well go to it now because I think you just introduced that quite well, and the whole idea of guided meditation or meditation and how that links with mindfulness, and mindfulness being a practice. It's funny just hearing all of the kind of different perspectives, and it's great already, we're kind of thinking of the challenges around that, but it does appear to be, it's a practice, but it can be challenging. But let's get back to that, that idea of the difference between meditation, which really is a practice, an intent, as you said, Sylvia, rather than, you know, paying attention. It's part of it, but let's kind of dig a little bit deeper. So I'm just wondering who wants to take that, the difference between meditation and I see Miffy, I think you want to come in there, do you?
Is that okay? Yeah.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a question that is asked a lot, actually, and it's a very valid one. And I think Sylvia did describe it very well, that, you know, meditation is that intentional where you are, you know, and the definition of meditation is to attend to one thing to the exclusion of all other things, right? And where mindfulness is about just noticing what is. So you're being the observer when you're being mindful. And there's a very thin line between the two, to be fair. And a lot of mindfulness practice is used in meditation, because in meditation, when you are setting an intention, let's say, to focus on light in your heart space, let's say, but you might wander off to your shopping list, or, you know, a dog might bark or whatever and take you away, or you might get sleepy and kind of go into a bit of a fuzz, you know. And so it's a mindfulness technique that you'll use to come back to, where was it I was? Oh yeah, I was in that nice warm glowy feeling in my chest area, you know. So it is a thin line between the two, I think, but mindfulness, like I said in sort of my definition, it's that attending to what is, what's present. And meditation is maybe, yeah, about witnessing yourself, but also like you might meditate on, you know, and then you're going to visualization as well. So, you know, meditation is often includes a lot of visualization. So you might imagine roots, let's say, growing out through your feet, so to ground you, and you might imagine, you can imagine light coming in, you can imagine colors, you can use your breath to breathe in certain virtues and strengths or whatever, you know. So there's so much you can do with both. And yeah, it's kind of hard to separate them out as such, but yeah, I mean, there's meditations like tantric meditations and so on, and there's using mantras and you know, mudras in your hands and all sorts of stuff. So that there's a whole array of ways to meditate and a whole array of ways to practice mindfulness. And then there's where they kind of overlap as well. I don't know if that helps in any way, but
no. And I suppose the question I'd have then would be, you know, I suppose you can't meditate without mindfulness. It's there, you know, what chicken and egg kind of thing.
Yeah, it's the choosing to focus on something. So you might choose a candle flame, let's say, right? Or you might choose with your eyes closed to focus on what you can see at the bridge of your nose in your mind's eye, okay? So that's intentional meditation. That's where you're choosing to focus on something. By the same token, you can do the same practice mindfully. You know, that's a mindfulness practice too, by just always bringing your attention back to your candle flame, or always bringing your attention back to what you can see in your mind's eye. So yeah.
I think though people might struggle sometimes with the meditation piece, whereas you could build mindful activities every day. And I'm just wondering, does anybody else want to come in on
can
that?
I come in there, Margaret?
And I think Niamh wants to come in as well. So Noelle, we'll come to you and then I'll go straight to Niamh. Thanks, Niamh.
I suppose for me, mindfulness can be applied any time of the day. It's something you can just access no matter who you're with, where you are, what you're doing. Meditation is usually a specific time, you know, it's a specific thing you'll do. So they really do interlink, like Miffy was saying, and mindfulness supports meditation, and meditation advances mindfulness because it just opens it up more. So they interlink that way. But I think meditation is specific time that you'll set for yourself to do. Mindfulness, you just access with anyone or wherever you are. And to me, mindfulness is a practice and a tool. Meditation is is a practice and a tool. And mindfulness is a practice, but it's more than that. It's a way of living. And I think that's the difference. That with that, you just learn, you know, it teaches you to be more kinder and compassionate. I know I've said about kindness and compassion, but And like Mike was saying, that care and awareness, like you bring that in more, you learn to develop that more through the mindfulness axis each day. So mindfulness is the aware of certain things at the present moment, what's going on, and meditation to me is the awareness of nothing, kind of you're letting your thoughts bleed through. So anyway, that's my take.
No,
and
no, it does. And Niamh, I know you wanted to come in on that. So again, just your thoughts.
Sorry, I'm on my phone, so I'm kind of
not at all. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
But yeah, it is. It's I find it a kind of, or I did, and I suppose I still do sometimes, kind of a complicated differentiation to make between mindfulness and meditation. Yeah, I think I don't know who I heard say it, but you do meditation mindfully, and you can do lots of things mindfully, but you could eat your dinner mindfully, but you can't eat your dinner meditatively, really, so yeah, meditation is kind of, I suppose, yeah, like they've said previously, like intentional kind of sitting down. And yeah, there's lots of different forms of meditation, that like Miffy was saying, visualization, love and kindness, kind of mantra ones, and you can also have a mindfulness meditation, mindfulness meditation practice. But I suppose I kind of think of it in my head, mindfulness can be that kind of more informal, everyday, like people were saying previously, and meditation is more that kind of carved out space. And I think, yeah, like I think you were saying yourself, Margaret, meditation can be harder, often. That kind of sitting down and giving yourself the space and the time to do it, and maybe closing the eyes, or whereas mindfulness is, I suppose, yeah, just bringing attention to what you're already doing in your life, rather than getting lost in the thoughts all the time. But yeah.
And I think that is the push and pull of this, the meditation and the mindfulness, and it is chicken and egg. And actually with that, there's a couple of questions in the Q&A that I'd like to go to.
Yeah,
Mike, do you want to come in there? And then please.
On that. And I suppose it's kind of, well, it's an interesting conversation. And I love the way Miffy was talking about looking at your, trying to look at the tip of your nose. But, so it's trying to figure out stuff. But why are you doing it? What is it for? Because I can go back to times in my life where I was being completely overwhelmed in here with depression, anxiety, mental distress. And if somebody had said to me in clinical practice, try and look at the tip of your nose, I'd just be wondering how I would respond to that. So I think there has to be a readiness as well, or a capacity to do it, before you can reach that point. Because again, like when you talk about like the benefits, and is it for everybody? Well, maybe at certain times in your life, but and I suppose it comes back to, as I was saying, that mindlessness. So for me, when I would have been that unwell, how do I empty my head? So it's kind of like, what do I do? And trying multiple times and different things, and all the different practices people say, do this. None of them worked, until such time as eventually it worked. And that was probably the hard bit, because it's not just kind of look at the end of your nose or become aware or meditate and it'll change your life. There's nothing easy about when you're totally gone in here, So again, it's just, yeah, I'm just throwing that in.
No, and I think it's worthwhile doing that, Mike. It's because, and I do have a couple of questions there, but we've kind of segued into one I think that we all kind of agreed that we thought was important to touch on. So we probably might do that now. So thank you so much for the questions, and we will definitely get to them. So don't worry about that. But at this juncture, I think it makes more sense to talk about that. Is mindfulness for everybody or for every moment? I mean, it is the buzzword of the moment. It does seem to be, as we discussed earlier, there's a kind of whole industry built around it. Personally, I find mindfulness is part of my daily life. It's trying to bring me back into the moment when everything is just being loud and you know, it just gives me the space to keep me well. But there's been times where definitely I think mindlessness would have been more appropriate, and there's all sorts of stuff. And I know who would like to come in on that. So in terms of, is it for everybody? What's your thoughts on that? Is it times when it's problematic? I think, Niamh, do you want to come in on that? Yeah, I just saw you move there, yeah.
I might just say a little bit about that. I know there's a lot of research coming out now around, because mindfulness is thrown around as a kind of a buzzword or a panacea or magic bullet a lot of the time. And the kind of, you know, how could mindfulness or meditation be harmful? But there's a lot of research coming out around that sometimes maybe mindfulness practice can be, well, it's difficult for everyone, but it can be harmful or maybe not the best thing for people that have been through trauma. So, you know, that's, I suppose, a very distressing event. Maybe that was very overwhelming, dysregulating, and maybe someone felt out of control or lost a sense of self. And particularly if the maybe symptoms of the trauma are quite present, someone recommending maybe a guided mindfulness session, or that kind of consistent paying attention to your body or your internal experiences might not be safe for that person at that time. And it's not to say that mindfulness practice can't be helpful for that emotional dysregulation or for the loss of self that can come about from trauma. It's just to be mindful of how you're using mindfulness, and that maybe it needs to be done with someone who's kind of trauma informed, or, you know, in one-to-one session with someone, be it a therapist or something, or maybe it's using the mindful activities more so than you know, going into a practice. And sometimes also using maybe external focus rather than internal focus. So instead of kind of monitoring and staying with your thoughts or your feelings or your sensations, it might be putting your attention out to the external environment, an object or whether it's a stone, or maybe it's keeping your eyes open and paying attention to sights or activities, gardening, knitting, whatever, painting, art. But I think, yeah, to be careful and cautious, maybe, especially if difficult internal experiences are coming up when someone is sitting and paying attention. And aside from maybe trauma, it's, I suppose, mindfulness, like Mike was saying, is different. You know, some people find it very difficult to do the kind of formal practices, and it does get easier over time and with practice, but sometimes maybe starting with mindful activity can be a way in, rather than kind of forcing yourself to kind of sit with a formal practice. But yeah, I'll stop.
No, I think Niamh, it's really important to have that, and I'll come to you in a second, Miffy. Thank you. Just want to reflect a little bit on that. It's just important to have that said, particularly in terms of the trauma piece, and the fact it's not taking it off the table, but it's saying you just need to be careful. And I suppose it's choosing practitioner, it's choosing your moment, it's choosing when you're ready for that. Even in terms of the pain management side, I know for myself, I had a really bad back problem a few years ago, and what really helped me was that external meditation piece where it took me out of my body. So I was, you know, and it really helped. But it is choosing the right practice, the right practitioner, the right moment, the right support. And I think it's really worthwhile saying that Apologies, Niamh, I'll come to yourself now.
No, that's fine. Absolutely. And I think those reflections are very important. And I suppose I think it's a mixed bag, because absolutely it can be really difficult to be present to what is, especially when it's trauma. And the thing is, that trauma is generally stored in the body and is remembered in the body. And so a lot of mindfulness practices are about dropping down, back down into the body, out of the head, where the head is flying and spinning outwards, and it's about coming into the body and into the feelings, both emotional and physical. This is where all the head stuff happens and the thinking, and it spirals outwards. But the feeling, both emotional and physical, is kind of from here down, right? So accessing that can be painful and difficult, especially when you're remembering trauma. So that is important that that's done safely. But that said, it still needs to be done at some point. So the access, as Niamh says, from starting outside with external, being mindful of external things, the senses are a great way, to access that. But by gently coming inwards and gently getting used to being in the body. And that might begin with, feeling your skin and feeling the sensations of your breath. And for some, that even is too much. So it's very gradual, and it's a healing process. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a healing process when we're dealing with trauma. But once you can get in and access, and I know myself, I have fibromyalgia, and mindfulness has been a massive support for me, because it's trauma that created the pattern of fibromyalgia for me. My body, in its wisdom, learned at a very young age to hold on to the pain, because there wasn't a forum for emotional expression for me, right? And so my body said, I'll mind that for you in various places and in various ways. And as an adult, I was lucky enough to find ways to access that and to learn to befriend my body and learn to be grateful for the messages it was giving to me and for its wisdom to hold this for me until I was ready and courageous enough to feel it emotionally and all of those things. And so mindfulness can be a massive catalyst for healing and growth and so on. But it's not easy. That's all hard work, and that requires sitting in a therapist room with your therapist while you access that painful memory and while you let it emerge and while you get to know why it was stored where it was and why it hurts where it does and why it recurs and all of those things. So yeah, I suppose it isn't a panacea, and it's not necessarily for everybody. There are lots of ways to heal, and there's lots of ways to recover from trauma. It's just one way of accessing that. But yeah, so.
Great, Miffy, and absolutely. And I'm so glad that we had that discussion, because it does come up again and again in our own workshops, particularly that the trauma piece and how you can use those kind of techniques. But it goes
Can
to.
I just add one thing to that?
Yeah,
well,
please.
Margaret,
And then I do want to just come to
the
question you got there.
Because I know, like you're saying, and that's it. The main thing is to have that support network, because if you don't have that strong support network around you, you need to have that if you're going to dip into it, because you're looking at your thoughts, your feelings. And, what it comes to is there's a very fear base there of not being able to cope with the pain and the rawness of it. And fear is, I had this discussion this morning, it's the ego trying to stop you accessing kindness to yourself. And anxiety is the fear of fear, because fear wants you to be isolated. So like Miffy saying, but you do need to dip into the trauma then to help you heal. And the mindfulness is just a tool that can help you do that. But definitely have a security blanket there of people or someone that trusted that can help you with that, because it is the fear that stops us. I think I just wanted to add that bit.
And again, lovely, Noelle. Just a lovely description there. Thank you for sharing that. I just want to, because we've got a couple of questions there, and I said I'm mindful of the time. We could spend, I think, a whole workshop talking particularly around trauma-informed care and using mindfulness techniques. That is a whole separate section, which we maybe should think about doing. Yeah, just got the first one there. Miffy mentioned Tantra meditation. What's that, and what are mantras? Miffy, would you mind replying to that in the chat? Because I just want to go to the next two, if that's okay.
Okay, the chat is only enabled for hosts and participants.
Yeah, but you can actually put it into the
Q&A, can I?
The Q&A. You can put it into the Q&A, yeah, directly.
Perfect.
Just so that we get that and everybody can see it. Is mindfulness not just meditation in practice? I'm just looking at that and I'm reading it, and I think, Noelle, you were going to reply there, but for me, meditation it would be more mindfulness in practice, and maybe that's just my kind of way of looking at it, if somebody wants to come in on that one. So that's from Anne. Is mindfulness not just meditation in practice, ? And Anne also then follows up, Mike, with yourself. I agree with Mike that you have to be ready, and I think we can all agree that, especially after the last, the last bit of the conversation. Do you know what makes you ready? For me, it was yoga that got me ready. So would you say body work is the bridge to mindfulness? Thanks. I'll just come in on that if I don't mind, because yoga for me was the opening for me to meditation, and because I had a really good yoga teacher, so I completely understand that. But I'm going to put it to Mike, because Mike, you were mentioned in that.
Yeah, and I suppose I've never done yoga, and I don't think I'm going to start. And but I suppose it's find what works for you. And I suppose here, I think particularly what Niamh, Noelle, and Miffy was saying, I think I'd love to hear what Sylvia has to say with what's gone on as well just after him. But it's around, because like when you are dealing stuff with that level of distress and trauma, for some people, it really, like for me, the red flags have gone up now as regards mindfulness, that you really need to, don't just say, I'm holding a lot of trauma, I'll go on YouTube and do a mindfulness video and I'll follow this. Whereas like you could actually be harming yourself. So I suppose that's the message that's come across with, that you need to proceed with caution if you have that level of distress or trauma that needs work done, which clearly needs to be done, as Miffy said, but I think it needs to be done carefully with a practitioner and in the right way. That not just, whereas I think if you're cruising through life and everything is wonderful, we have the normal ups and downs, and you want to do a bit of mindfulness, well, yeah, so if there's no trauma behind you or mental distress, well, then it's not going to open up anything. But there's risk involved from what I've heard today, And I think the last thing I'd say is kind of on that, about mindfulness and being present. So I suppose the last thing, what I want to say when I would have been very unwell, is to be not present. I need a break. I need to get out of this. I need rest. I cannot shut this nonsense off. So the last thing I want to be is, I need to be even more aware of what I'm holding and what I'm feeling, because like that's actually what you're describing for me there, is total disintegration of the self. If I was to enter into that, and I know I'm probably gone a bit sideways, but I'd love to hear what Sylvia says, because I know maybe you want.
Yeah, no, I'm just looking at the time there, and I'm just going to put on Sylvia. Yeah, if you could just be a couple of minutes there, and then we'll go.
Okay, so brief. I had so much to say. There were tools and everything going on, but around that question in the Q&A and the differentiating the meditation and the mindfulness, I feel strongly you don't have to meditate in order to be mindful. For me, what it is, it's, and I think just keep it simple when you're trying to look at it, but meditation helps me go away from my mind and to my heart. Mindfulness, yes, I go to the mind and I pay attention. So and even, okay, think of the words consciousness. You are conscious in the mindful practice, and through meditation, it's about expanding your consciousness. Now that's just my vibe I get from it. That helps me to just take away the grey muddiness. I don't know if it helps answer the question, but it's just my bit of input there. Can I just touch on Niamh's thing about using the external? And I found this was brilliant with young children and adults. It's not just said for the children, but this is just this is a Hoberman ball. Now I was saying about the difficulty of going to the breath and using the breath to center. But we used to use this in activities, and basically it's when you're breathing in, expand the ball. When you breathe out, contract the ball. And that's where your focus is. It helps you to do that. I just find these things are brilliant. We're talking about tools and techniques. So if anyone wants to pick one up, it's called a Hoberman ball. And I'll end it at that. Sorry for rushing through that.
No, Sylvia, and I'm sorry for rushing you, because that was so useful.
I'm just conscious of time.
No, this is the kind of topic we could spend hours on. There's just so many avenues we could go down. I do like, just one shout out is the mindful based stress reduction course. I found that really helpful in terms of what John Cabot's in, really helped me in terms of my own recovery. And so just a shout out for that. Miffy, I know it's 10:02 already. I'd love for us to all experience, we've talked about mindfulness meditation, but I'd love to experience a meditation with you now if everybody's up for that. Would this be a good moment, do you think, Miffy?
Yeah,
back into the moment.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, so what I'll do is we'll just do about a three minute practice, okay, and I'll lead you through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bit of breath awareness, we're going to do a bit of body awareness, but we're going to incorporate gratitude practice into that, okay. So we're going to bring a few of the elements of mindfulness practice together, and yeah, just see how it goes. So yeah. So just take a moment now, because we've been chattering and we've been asking questions and answering questions and all of that. So just take a moment to just pause. And you might want to sit back into your seat if you're seated, and just relax your body. And bring your awareness to the connection that your body is making with the seat. And bring your attention to the soles of your feet on the floor. And just allowing the floor and the seat to support you for now. Just noticing what happens when you give yourself permission to surrender to the support of the seat and the floor. Just noticing the sensations in your body as you allow yourself be supported from beneath. And notice your breath. Not trying to change or regulate anything, just bringing your awareness to the rise and the fall of your breath. And what do you notice when you bring awareness to your breath? You might notice the texture of your breath. The speed or the duration of each breath. And allowing your breath to be just as it is. There's no right or wrong. Your body knows intrinsically how to breathe. So just bringing your awareness. And your thoughts will invite you to follow them, and that's okay. And you can choose instead to follow your breath. And now you can use your breath to bring your awareness downwards through your body. So beginning with the sensations of your breath in your nose. And the sensations of your breath in your throat. and your shoulders. And your chest. Noticing the subtle movement that's created by breathing. Noticing the sensations of your breath in your back. In your sides. In your belly. In your hips and your pelvis. In your bottom and your thighs. In your knees. In your legs, your feet. Allowing each breath to soften as your arms settle into your lap. Your elbows and your wrists. Your hands, fingers and thumbs. And take a moment now to reflect on how you feel about your body and what it is about your body that you're grateful for. What have your feet and your legs allowed you today? And begin to allow some gratitude to grow. Extending that gratitude to your body for all the things that it does for you of a day. Your muscles, ligaments and joints. Arms and your hands. Grateful for all that they bring to your day. Your body, your trunk, your torso that houses your organs. Just extending gratitude to all the systems within you that operate unbidden, day in and day out, supporting you. Your senses. Extend gratitude for something you've heard today. And extend gratitude for something you've seen today. Something you've smelled. Something you've tasted. And how your sense of touch enhances your life. And now bringing your awareness back to your breath, taking a moment to extend gratitude for your breath. And allowing your next breath to deepen slightly as you begin to bring your awareness back outwards. And in your own time, you can have a stretch, you can open your eyes, and the practice is over.
Thanks so much, Miffy, for that wonderful. I'm sorry to interrupt everybody. Gosh.
I apologize for the little interruption. My little decided he wanted to get involved in the practice, so I thought he'd stay asleep, but he didn't.
We're well used to in our workshops. We always have that. We love the pets, we love the dogs. So no, it was just lovely. And now to try and get back into the mindset and be present. I just want to say, first of all, if you can just stay with us, I know it's 3 o'clock, but there's just a little bit we'd like to finish up with. But I just want to say, first of all, thank you, big thank you to Miffy. Miffy, that was just lovely. And really appreciate it. Big love, big heart to you there for that. Yeah, I have to get refocused now. So I suppose we're just in the moment we're going to start to say our goodbyes and maybe do a little bit of signposting. So please do stay with us if you can. Again, if you feel, panelists, that you'd like to share anything with the that we haven't missed, whether we've missed, please put it into the chat. But in the meantime, I'm going to just come to each of you. If you can keep it brief, just to say our goodbye, but also, I suppose, give people a takeaway. We've already kind of suggested mindfulness is not easy. It may be simple, as we kind of said, it might be accessible, but it's not easy. So if you're kind of starting on that journey and would like to try it out, what would be the takeaway for people? So who'd like to come in to say their goodbyes and also to give that one piece of advice?
I might come in there.
Yes, Sylvia, please. Yes.
I just want to say, I suppose, in terms of advice, if you're beginning, to go into it without expectations. Like we're saying, it's not the panacea. It's like everything, there's side effects, there's risks to everything. And it does take work and practice and a lot of personal effort as well. So just be gentle with yourself around that. As we saw the darker side to the mindfulness. And have a beginner's mind, which I think that is one of the roots of mindfulness, which John Kabat-Zinn was like, the beginner's mind. And if you struggle and you mess up, don't judge yourself, go back to beginner's mind again next time. So I just want to say goodbye. Thanks a million. I've learned a lot today. So great workshop. Thank you.
Brilliant, Sylvia, and thanks again for your honesty. And I need to get myself one of those. What do they call them again? Those bowls things?
Oh, the hope. I'll put it in the chat.
Do put it in the chat and just make sure that you share it with everyone rather than just panelists, because I think that was really good. Who'd like to say goodbye next? And again, give that little piece of advice for somebody starting if they can. Niamh, yeah, please.
Hey, so yeah, just to say it was lovely to be a part of this, and great to hear all the different perspectives. So thank you for inviting me to come along. The takeaway, I suppose, to echo what Sylvia was saying there, it can be difficult, and it can also it can be painful maybe sometimes to go into the more difficult emotions. But I think for me, like you were saying, Sylvia, with the beginner's mind, just bringing mindfulness to what you're already doing. Sylvia, I can't remember, was it you that said you brush your teeth mindfully?
Yeah, in the morning. Yeah, 5 minutes to do that.
Yeah, so doing something you're already doing, even if that's the takeaway from today, is just to try. It might be, I find the most helpful place to be mindful in the shower. There's so much kind of sensation, the smells and the water and the sounds. But choosing something, whether it's having a cup of tea, but to just notice how often your mind wanders, how often that happens. Because each time your mind wanders, it could go to a happy place, but it could go to a more painful memory or worry about the future. And that does impact our mood, even if we're not aware of it. So I would say take home from this, maybe to try do something mindfully, paying attention to it, and keep an eye on the thoughts and just not being like magnetized to them or fusing with them, but yeah, bringing your attention, choosing maybe not to go into the difficult thoughts. Maybe that's for later, or that's with the therapist, but for right now, I'm going to drink my drink and think about drinking my drink. I'm going to stop, as you said, be brief.
Oh, no, thanks, Niamh. No, that's perfect. Great stuff. And thanks again for just all of your very honest contributions. We really appreciate it. Noelle, I know you want to.
Yeah, just to first of all, thank everyone today. It was really enjoyable, but just to say, start simple. You know, like anything, do your research on it, you know, educate yourself around it. Compassion.org is a great place to start, very simple. So I just put that in the chat, but just to say, you know, just do it simple. You know, don't make it, it can be as difficult as you make it. So just do it simply for yourself and find what works for you. And John Cabot-Sim, I'm just going to leave with his phrase is, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. And that's just being able to capture a moment by paying attention. And it's as simple as that. I'm leaving it on that.
Thanks, Noelle. Brilliant and well said. Mike, do you want to say your goodbye? And again, that one piece of advice, and you always have, that's always problematic for you, but
it is always problematic for me. So I suppose whether you ever bother to do mindfulness or meditation or anything, whatever you choose to do, just be mindful. And that's the message I leave. So again,
well said.
So great discussion, enjoyed it. I love a good discussion. So thank you, and thank you for anyone out there who is listening. I wish you all well. Okay.
Thanks, Mike. I think that's a great way to put it. Miffy, if you'd like to say goodbye, and again, just that little piece of advice.
Yeah, I think I echo what Noelle says, to start small. I think it can be very overwhelming to think you have to sit with something for a long period of time. So, you know, take 3 mindful breaths. Anytime you find yourself waiting, bring attention to one of your senses just for the duration of the wait, whether it's the internet to load or the lights to go green at the traffic lights or the washing machine door to unlock, whatever. Well, anytime you find yourself waiting, there's potential for added stress. So you can use that time to practice your mindfulness. And there's a really simple exercise where you put your finger at the heel of your hand, breathe in as you go up, follow your finger around, breathe out as you go down. Breathe in as you go up, and you're following your hand. So you're breathing in as you go up, breathing out as you go down, and you follow your hand all the way around, going as slowly as possible, all the way around to the butt of your thumb. And then you can start going back the way for as long as it takes to calm you or whatever you need. It's a lovely one to do with another person who might be in emotional distress. It's lovely to do with kids. It's a tool you have on the go. You can do it quite passively without anybody necessarily knowing what you're doing. So it's just a way to start, you know. And thanks a million for inviting me to come along. I've really enjoyed the discussion and learned lots too.
Likewise, Miffy, and thank you for that. And that's my takeaway. I'm going to be doing that now. That exercise, so simple, so simple, but just really effective. I do want a little bit of signposting if you want to hang around for, but we will just remind you all, this is recorded, so it will be available on our YouTube channel and also as a long form podcast on any of the platforms, Spotify and so on, over the next couple of days. So if it's something you want to kind of dig a little bit deep in there, for that very reason, I want to just mention these for anybody who is listening. So Noelle already mentioned it, livingcompassion.org, a great place to start. The Hoberman Ball, as we described there, and I think Sylvia, you also put magicminds.ie, and this one, the Mindfulness Teachers Association of Ireland. We were speaking about this just prior to coming on, so definitely check that out. I'm just going to share my screen for a moment there, just with, again, tiny bit of signposting, and then we'll go on. We obviously are a recovery education service, so we run 12 months a year, as we say. Mental health challenges don't take holidays, so we don't. We're here, and in August we'll be running a range of workshops there online in the community. We also operate in the acute psychiatric unit. So things like depression, managing well-being, mental health, understanding acute mental health services for families, carers and supporters, and so on. We even have a whole series on self-care, so that might be something you'd like to come along to. And all of our events are available on Eventbrite. Just look for Mid West ARIES, all one word. I just want to just pass you for a moment again, stick with us for Miffy, because again, if you want to just dip your toes in, Miffy, do you just want to just tell us about this page on Mental Health Ireland?
Sure. Yeah, so it's a page on our website. So it's the mindfulness page, and that's just an image of what it looks like. And there's a few guided recordings there and information about mindfulness. The one in the middle is the mindful pause, and there's 6 little, very short little guided practices that engage the senses. And then there's the Creativity for Wellbeing workbook as well, which is a mindfulness colouring book with extras. And so it's a personal growth book as well that we developed in co-production ahead of Christmas last year, and it's going very well. So anyway, you can look at it online. There you go, you got it there, Margaret, well done. So yeah, you can just access that through our website. Thanks.
Great stuff. Thanks so much, Miffy, for that. And yeah, that's creativity workbook, fantastic. Again, just giving a shout out for next month, which is one I know is very close to Mike's heart. And it's the whole idea of anxiety, my superpower. What's all that about? Well, come along and see, because sometimes anxiety, I mean, maybe it's not all bad news around anxiety. So yeah, so that's Wednesday, 31st of August. My gosh, we're talking about August already. So you can sign up again for that on Eventbrite. And then finally, if you want to connect with us online, we are across all the major platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And we also have, as I said, the Wellness Panel, which is our podcast. We have all of the monthly webinars on there, and also there are guided meditations on there from Kiely and my colleague here at Mid West ARIES, and they're available on YouTube as well. I am very conscious of the fact that we've gone over, but I think it was worth it. I just want to say a big thank you to our panel, and I hope to see you all again soon. I hope we can strong arm the mic into coming again, because this is a really good conversation, and I think we could do another one on this. So I just want to say thank you to Miffy, and thanks to all at Mental Health Ireland for all their support. Miffy, it was fantastic, and thank you so much for that lovely meditation. Niamh, thanks again, only in the job, not even a wet week, and just decided just to get straight in. And I really hope that you'll come along again to some of our other webinars, because great perspective there. As always, Noelle and Sylvia, in terms of our facilitators, you're just brilliant. You know, tell it as it is. And Mike, always voice of reason, Mike. No, thanks so much. And we'll close it there. And yeah. Whatever you're doing, take a moment, and thanks for spending that moment with us today. We really appreciate you being here. So bye, and hopefully see you next month.